that Rwanda debate never ever goes away, does it? On Monday, the House of Commons will be voting again on a series of amendments that have gone through the House of Lords. The game of parliamentary ping-pong is on. But overnight, another genius idea has come from our government. Oh, yes. If you come to this country illegally and you fail your asylum claim, you are given the opportunity to voluntarily go back to your country, and we help you do it. But in some cases, let's say you've come from Syria, well, we're not going to return you there because we don't think that's safe. So the new master plan is, rather than forcibly removing you to Rwanda, we're going to pay you to go to Rwanda. Yeah, we're going to give you 3,000 quid spending money to go to Rwanda. You're going to get 5 years free accommodation. I mean, you couldn't make this up, could you? And the total cost estimated now from the Office of National Statistics is that for every single person that goes to Rwanda, if any do, the cost will be an estimated £171,000 per person that goes. But the idea that a 3,000 quid, little bit of pocket money, and 5 years free accommodation and a chance to work, the idea that that somehow will reduce the numbers coming across the English Channel is for the birds. After all, you could buy a very, very cheap little kayak or kiddie dinghy in one of the main supermarkets around Calais or Boulogne, and on a nice day in June or July, row across the Channel, say you come from Syria or somewhere like that, and you get £3,000 every time you do it. I think, if anything, it might actually encourage more people to cross the English Channel. I think they are in absolutely dire straits with all of this. I've never thought the Rwanda plan was going to work, but love to know what you think. Maybe you think I'm wrong. You tell me. Will this work? Farage at GBNews.com. Ivan Sampson, immigration lawyer and friend of this programme, who himself has expressed quite a lot of reservations about the Rwanda scheme over time. Although, you know, in principle, any deterrent would be a good thing, wouldn't it?
Indeed. And voluntary returns is nothing new, Nigel.
No.
It's been around for a decade.
Yeah.
The difference here is that they're not going back to their own country, they're going to a third party. Now, Israel ran such a scheme in 2014, sending people from Eritrea and Sudan to Rwanda, paying them to go back there. And what the government's thinking is this, that if you voluntarily go back, you can't then challenge the decision of the Supreme Court that it's not safe. You can't do a Rule 39 injunction. So
because it's voluntary.
Because it's voluntary. So that way you can't say breaches my human rights, you know, because you're going back voluntarily. And that's the thinking behind it. What they haven't told us is how much Rwanda's getting paid. We know that each person will get 3,000, but how much is the government paying Rwanda, as well as the cost of the accommodation and so forth? So, and also, how many people will actually take the scheme up to make it worthwhile? How many can Rwanda take? It's not going to have an impact on the small boats.
This is one of the problems, isn't it? That, you know, the talk from Rwanda was hundreds of people. It wasn't 5,000 people.
500 is the amount that's been battered down. That's not going to make a dent in the numbers coming across on the small boats, from 26,000 up to 45,000, probably about 30,000 maybe this year. So it's not going to have any impact whatsoever. What the government needs to do is secure our borders. We're an island. Please. If we were a land border, I can understand, like Mexico and US, but we're an island. We should be able to secure these stretch of waters to prevent people from entering irregularly.
Well, I think if we had the political will, we could do it. But one last point on this 3,000 quid idea. See, I think that could add as a further pull factor for people to cross the Channel.
Possibly, but the data will bear that out. I mean, would people travel right across several countries to get here for £3,000 to go to Rwanda? I'm not sure.
No.
And then go back again and do it again? I'm not sure.
But it's actually a good backstop, isn't it?
It is.
If you come here and it all goes wrong and you fail your asylum, I mean, most of them pass the asylum claims, but you fail the asylum claim, if the worst case scenario is you're given 3,000 quid and a chance to live for free and work in Rwanda, it's not all bad, is it? Well,
it's a payback. I mean, the traffickers charging tens of thousands of dollars for bringing people over. So
Yeah, that depends, Ivan. That depends. I mean, yes, on, boats with decent engines. In the case of many of the Africans who haven't, and I've seen this myself in the channel, who've got no money at all. They're coming over in 50 euros worth of kayak.
Yes, and they haven't paid anyone. They haven't
paid anyone. Yeah. And the tragedy that we saw last week with a 7-year-old girl dying, that was a group of people who'd stolen a boat.
Yeah. Look, I agree. It could be a pull factor. We need to secure our borders, Nigel. We need to know who's coming across, where they come from. There could be terrorists coming across. We've had this conversation before.
I know.
And we don't know who they are. Could be Hamas terrorists for we know. So we need to secure our borders. This government is not doing it.
And we've seen some horrendous examples, haven't we? I mean, the Clapham alkali attacker, somebody who'd come here illegally. We last night discussed the droves of people who claim to be turning to Christianity. But how do we stop people in the middle of the English Channel, Ivan?
We need investment, technology. We need more border force officers. But the biggest thing that we can do is have a deal with the EU. Look, if we had a deal to return people back to France, unless they go through proper routes, after 100, who would cross the Channel when you know that you're going to be sent back? No one's going to do it.
And certainly who would pay a trafficker?
And who would pay a
trafficker? Very, very good point.
Indeed.
Well, joining me also to discuss this subject is Professor Azim Ibrahim, OBE, author and academic, and somebody else, of course, who has appeared on this programme. So, Azim, tell me, do you think this could help?
Well, Nigel, this scheme at the moment is basically just a stopgap until the full Rwanda bill comes to fruition, and the UK government can then start deporting people and enforce the actual immigration policy. So this is just a temporary, I believe, and extension of what the current scheme is, of asking people to voluntarily return. And this has worked effectively in the past. We've had about 19,000 people returned in such a way. And this is aimed at those principally that are coming from countries which the UK does not have a relationship with, where the UK does not have direct flights with. Afghanistan, for example, the Taliban government, with Syria, etc. But this is not a permanent solution in any shape or form. And this is why we need the Rwanda bill to get through Parliament as quickly as possible, so we can start enforcing that in a more viable fashion.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of those commentators who's quite bullish in some ways about this Rwanda plan. But let's say that after the game of parliamentary ping-pong is finished, and Monday will be a big part of that, that we do get some legislation in place. What is to stop the ECHR through the Human Rights Act and legal challenges rendering this completely unworkable?
Well, the bill is designed at the moment to make sure that we surpass that. The bill is a treaty and a bill with Rwanda. And I have looked at immigration policies throughout Europe of every country. No country has been able to get this right. And the fact of the matter is, I firmly believe that the Rwanda bill is the only thing that's going to work, is the only thing that's going to deter migrants from coming to the UK. If they know that as soon as they land, there'll be a bus waiting for them. That bus will take them to Gatwick Airport, and there'll be a plane waiting to take them to Rwanda. I believe you only need to do this for a month or so. And I think the people smugglers, the business will dry up and people will be deterred from coming here. I firmly believe this is the only thing that's going to work.
I agree with that, if that's what were to happen. But I'm going to return to immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson. Ivan, what Azim's, if that worked, it would be a deterrent. He's quite right. It wouldn't take a month. A fortnight would be enough.
It's not going to work.
But it's not going to work, is it?
No, it's not going to work. Firstly, the Supreme Court has said the policy is lawful, but Rwanda isn't. The Joint Committee on Human Rights of Parliament said Rwanda's not safe. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the UNCHR, the government, there's a moral obligation not to send people to a country that's not safe. Even this current £3,000 scheme, there's a moral aspect to this. They're inviting people to go to a country which we all know not to be safe. Look, we had this conversation over the last year, and I've told not one single person is going to be removed to Rwanda. Why? Because it breaches the Refugee Convention. It breaches Article 8 of the European Convention. Yeah. And also the Clause 4, which says that you can appeal. Well, you can't. You can only appeal on very limited grounds. On top of that, the minister can overrule that and prevent any interim measures. That's a breach of the European Convention. It will never fly. Not a single person is going to be sent to Rwanda.
So I come back, Azim, to you on this, if you're still there. Yeah. Ivan's saying, look, we've signed up to the UN Convention, we're signed up to the ECHR, we have the Human Rights Act in this country, we have a judiciary who will interpret that as they choose. Azim, the point that's being made is great idea that it is, great and I get it. I completely get why they've been trying to do this, but it just isn't going to fly unless we change those international obligations, which I think the government is very loath to do.
Yeah, I'm not certain of that. I think the Supreme Court decision was on refoulement, and I myself have actually been to Rwanda. I've actually seen the accommodation. I spent some time there. It's a perfectly safe country by any measure. And I think the actual idea of, moving asylum seekers to Rwanda is actually a great idea, not just for Rwanda, but for the UK as well. This is an opportunity for them to participate in a growing economy, in a safe growing economy, and build a life for themselves. I think the policy is workable, and I firmly believe that this is actually the only policy that's going to work.
All right, well, let me put it to you. Do you think that between now and the general election, there will be plane loads, maybe several plane loads of people who've, say, crossed the channel going to Rwanda? Do you think this will happen this side of a general election?
Well, I can't comment whether it's going to be plane loads or not, but I do think the policy will be initiated before the side of a general election. I do think we'll start seeing the policy in action, and then it's just a question of ramping it up and to make sure it acts as a deterrent for anybody that's deciding to come to the UK through these illegal means.
Azim, Ibrahim, thank you very much indeed for joining me on GB News. And final word goes to Ivan. Ivan, it could just be that a government in very deep trouble, and very deep trouble with this policy, just says the hell with international law, the hell with the courts. We're going to send some plane loads the week before the election.
It'll never happen. It'll never happen. I don't believe that. What the government might do is in their manifesto is promise to come out the ECHR.
Yeah.
You might see that coming.
Yeah.
I just want to comment on what Professor Azim said about Rwanda's safe.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him stand in Rwanda with a placard which said, "Paul Kagame out." Because he'd be in prison within a heartbeat. So I'm afraid it isn't safe. It's safe when they invite you and they want to show you the good parts. But the Supreme Court's judgment clearly states that Rwanda is not a safe country.
Well, if you go to a home game at the Arsenal, visit Rwanda as one of their main sponsors. And it looks wonderful. But I haven't been. Maybe one day we'll go. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for that debate. Looking for your thoughts. Do you think this will work? You had two very different views there.